Your property has been landlocked. What is it? Let's talk about it. Stay tuned.
Hey,
Hey, good
Mr.
morning.
Rabbit. Good morning. How are you?
Top of the morning to you, Nate. Good,
Top of-
you.
I'm great. I'm good. It's Saturday. Love the Saturday chat with ya, and we're here today with a really interesting topic. And I kind of feel, as I was saying to you before we jumped on the camera, I feel like it's one of those student-teacher moments, and I think I really want to elaborate on it with you. Landlocked. You caught me off guard with this one, and
Yep.
it was funny because it all happened during one of our commercial caravans, which we do on a Wednesday arvo, and
Yep.
we more or less went for a walkabout through DY, and
Yep.
you're like a walking encyclopedia when it comes to real estate, and you really you spun us off a bit with this one. So the question is for you, Mark, and we're going to break it down. Let's start. What is landlocked? What does it mean?
So, look, normally a property, this doesn't happen with units. It happens with houses, commercial properties, stuff like that. Normally, there's a value, and particularly a perceived value in a block of land, and you think it's good for this or that, and then you actually find out over time while living there or after you've bought it that you cannot use that property for the purpose you wish to use that property. It's now locked. It's very serious because you can have a property that you think's worth $2 million that's now worth $500,000 because you didn't realize that its value was locked, or its potential value was locked from you doing that. And that happens with property. So you've got to be really, really careful with what you're buying, and you've got to be really careful about the future of zoning or what's going to happen to your property, and understanding the permitted uses. Does that make sense?
Interesting. So it's no mucking around business. It's extremely serious. And then I guess
you can get screwed hard. Yep.
Yeah. And I'd assume then though, I mean, look, if you're an investor, you're someone that's put in quite a considerable amount of money into a piece of property or an asset, and then you get told something like this. Is surely there's a kind of a grey area there where you get told of this, you're aware of this, or is it one of those things where essentially it's federal, state government laws don't allow it to happen? Can you elaborate a little bit on that one? Or
okay, let me give you a sort of worst case scenario.
Yeah.
So you've got a lovely family home, and you've brought your family up there for 5, 10, 15 years, 1 year, whatever that may be, and a developer knocks on the door and says, "Hey, I want to build a concrete car park, 3 stories high, to the left of your house, to the right of your house, and behind your house. So when you walk out in your backyard, you will see concrete. And then suddenly you realise that, hang on a sec, I've been locked. I've been locked from, I can't really. I'm locked in, literally. Another example. Yeah, and sometimes these developers will make you the offer out of nowhere, and you're like, mate, I'm not interested in selling. And then they're not going to say, well, we're going to landlock you, but they're going to say, look, we're going to develop around you, and unfortunately, you don't want to sell, but we get it, and you're stuffed.
Interesting, and it's almost like a means of like almost worming you out of your own property. And it's obviously, when we look at a piece of property like that, it's a desirable piece of property for them to really go about the project that they'd like to pursue. So that's interesting. Then another question for you is, Mark, in terms of when a property comes to this, when it comes to an investor, for instance, someone looking to gain access or gain ownership of these sorts of properties, does it affect the price dramatically?
It can do it in a really bad way. It can in a really good way, and sometimes it's just the decision that you actually make. Good morning, Anmal.
Good
So
morning.
another working example. So, for instance, if you're on a state road, some state roads will not allow you, if you knock down your property, to put another driveway in place.
Interesting.
So they will say, look, we've realised that this is a significant road. We've got emergency services running down this road now. We've got a clearway running down this road now. If you decide you would like to build a unit block where your house is, because you've got the zoning, we actually won't allow you to. We'll allow you to build the do the density, as in do the units, but we're not going to give you a driveway. If we're not going to give you a driveway, you can't have your units. So you're actually landlocked. You're stuffed.
Definitely. Can you, at the top of your head, think of some fairly common examples of something like this that you've seen throughout your career? Like, I mean, not that we've got to particularly name names, but for instance, suburb-wise, can you think of some places, for instance?
Yeah. So look, I think Meriton is an example in DY where they built 350 units, and there was I think at the time it was an ANZ Bank, single story, I think 500 metre square block, and what council now makes developers do is they now mandatory make these developers make an offer, and they generally want to see those offers in writing to the buyer and make a concerted effort to buy that property at a fair value before they proceed and go ahead. So to give you an idea, that property, which was the old ANZ Bank, I've got to be careful what I'm saying, because this is people's livelihood that own these properties that are getting landlocked. So I take it very seriously. I don't have all of the information as to what happened on those sites, but I'm only guessing from face value, 350 units. And what really should have happened was the developer should have made a great offer to that property next door. The seller should have said, screw you, Mr. Developer, I want more money. There should have been some sort of negotiation between the two, arrived to a price, and then the developer could have used that land as part of, because the developer already had a driveway going onto an adjoining street, already had a car park going onto an adjoining street. So they could have gobbled up that block of land, built more units, and threw the car park through the existing development. But what actually happened is that property came up for sale, and I had another client look at that property and think, you know what, it's landlocked. Meriton's now built. All around it is now 6 or 7 or 18 stories or whatever it was, and I actually, if I want to build something here, I've got to get council to allow me to build something with no parking. So straight away, residential units with no parking in a suburb like DY, that's not going to happen. So it's interesting. The guy that ended up buying that particular block from those particular people, I think it was in an auction situation, he's used it as a display showroom. So he's like, you know what? It was an ANZ Bank. I'm just going to run it again as offices. I don't have a requirement for parking under existing use because I'm just using the same building. But it's going to be interesting to see what he does with that. And there's another example across the road, which was the old Commonwealth Bank, landlocked as well.
That was the one that you caught our attention with as well. But seeing as how we're actually kind of flipping the script here, you know, landlocked doesn't necessarily mean such a negative thing. It's actually really cool that the investor, for instance, did their homework and was able to turn something into such a positive for him, right? Like, I mean, there are instances and situations where this can be rather like essentially a positive route for people to follow, correct?
Yeah. Yeah, look, I think that as an owner, like you've got to watch surrounding properties around you, surrounding zoning. You've got to watch around you, and I think you've got to be really commercial about it, guys, because sometimes the automatic reaction is like screw you
Yeah.
when you get approached by if you're surrounded by the enemy, which is
Yeah.
a developer or developers, and they're throwing checks at you. The
Yeah.
automatic response is like, "Screw you! You're going to pay through the nose. You're going to pay so much through the nose that it's not going to be worth it for you." But it's going to be worth it for me. And sometimes, it doesn't always happen, but sometimes a developer just walks away and just says, "Look, honestly, yeah, I actually have offered the best amount of money on that property. I'm now
Yeah.
proceeding with my building, and you're now landlocked." They'll never say that, but it's what happens.
It's what happens. And that's, I
Yeah,
think, like, that's actually so interesting. And I think this is what, when we were going for that walk and we were, diving deep into all of this, it was so interesting because you can then imagine as well, and I think it's what Luke's saying here, there's so many emotions at play. There would be a lot of emotions at play when it comes to this, especially if you've owned this particular plot of land or real estate for such a long time, and then you do get approached by an investor, or you get a developer that's looking to expand.
yeah,
It's not like you want to it's not like you want to make it easier for them, but at the same time, you probably don't want to really let it go. But
there's a number. Yeah,
times are constantly changing. Things are always evolving. And when you look at a
yeah,
suburb like DY, it's absolutely incredible what's been happening over the past couple of years, and more so what's going to be happening, especially with the other example that you mentioned across the road from this one. Where was the old? Sorry, was the CBA Bank? Was it, Mark? Or
yeah. It was an old Commonwealth Bank, and what was interesting is it went to auction.
yeah,
Everyone was thinking that is like 1,000 meter, 800 meter. I don't know what I was of land. That is a terrific, terrific site. But then anyone who knew anything was realizing that, man, council's not going to give you a permit to build shit because you can't get a driveway onto the main road because state government won't allow it. So straight away it diminished that value, and then people go, oh, hang on a sec, I'm not going to buy it because I can't develop it. What was actually interesting is because it was such a central location, and this was a bit of a landmark thing for our area. It was actually next door to the biggest bus stop in the Northern Beaches. So on a merit basis, although yes, it had been landlocked, the people next door would not allow it. Because what you want to do is when you're landlocked, you want to get friendly with someone around you. To either allow a driveway, in that example, for your development.
yeah,
Believe it or not, council will make considerations towards it. I'll give you a working example. Our office was allowed and permitted to do 7 stories high. They were allowed to do units, and they were a corner site on the corner of a quiet street and a busy road, being the main road. Now, get this. Guess what council said?
what was
Council
it?
came along, and their natural position is, have you made an offer to the site next door so they're not landlocked?
Yep.
Answer was, I have. And the person next door said, Mr. Developer, I'm not selling to you. But get this. The council then said, we will, and this went to a local environment court level, where the developer said, how about you give me another story on the corner site? And if you give me another story on the corner site, I'll give you a driveway going through my building into the landlocked site next door for free. And guess what? The person that was going to get landlocked ended up getting a driveway into a quiet street for free.
That's
But
cool.
the developer said, I want another story if I'm going to do that. And it actually happened. So that got approved for 7 stories of units. But in the side of the building, this got a bit complicated because it wasn't just a driveway that was needed, but due to reasons, waste reasons, rubbish reasons, there needed to be a full-size garbage truck that could make it into the landlocked site.
Yeah.
So it's not just a driveway, but it was literally a hole in the side of the building that could fit a garbage truck, of a hole in the side of the 7-story building that could fit a garbage truck and go through to the site next door. So they didn't get landlocked. So now councils are starting to getting really cotton on to, have you asked the question, is there a workable solution? But some councils aren't that smart, and sometimes stuff's been landlocked 5, 10, 15 years ago. People have been screwed.
Unbelievable. And if it's one of those things, if you won't really tell, you won't really know until you know someone like yourself that can really dive deep into a situation like this, or a scenario, because we've walked back and forth right by this big hole in the wall, as you called it, nice and high, and then you see the logic behind it now, why it's gone through that change, gone through that process. So it's this is really interesting stuff. Again, like I said, it's like a student teacher moment. You're fueling my brain. You're getting me excited, because now everywhere I bloody go, I'm going to be nitpicking or looking at.
You look at it differently.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I love it.
And guys, it's a live show, so if you've got any questions, throw them at us. But I think that example I just gave of, it was only permitted for 6 levels. It was a corner site. The council gave them an extra level if they allowed a free driveway to go through to the site next door. So the site next door was not landlocked. This sort of stuff out there that's happening, if you're sitting in a bus driving past, you'd never bloody realise, unless it's pointed out. Councils are onto it, developers are onto it. But I do have to say, the single property owner who hasn't developed a property before, who may just have a passive investment or not even be aware of it, you've really got to be conscious about, if a developer comes to make a move and make an offer, you've really got to have a backup plan as to, if it is like, screw you, Mr. Developer, I'm not going to sell to you, I want to make more money. Your backup plan should not be just to stay and do nothing. It should be like, what are my other options? What's my third option? Because these guys have just thought, stuff it, I'm staying in my existing investment, I'm going to keep it as it is, and they've become landlocked. But, look at, is there a second option, selling to the developer? Yes. And is there a third option? What's my get out of jail pass? There may be another adjoining landowner on the other side, or another street, or something you can do to not become landlocked. So it happens. And you know what? It can also happen on rural properties or country properties and stuff like that, where you're just not actually permitted to build a house. It may happen due to flooding. You may think you can actually build something, but you're now locked because you can't build what you want due to waste, flooding. There's and you think to yourself, there's always a workable solution, but sometimes there's not. So just make sure you've got what you're using it for existing. You've got what you're gonna use it for. Sorry, what the developer's making an offer to try to buy it off you, and then do you have that third get out of jail pass available on your property? Because sometimes just sitting there and just giving the middle finger to the developer and saying, no, I want more money, be careful, please. Talk to your local real estate agents. They're always in the know as well.
That's what I was going to say. Apart from keeping your options open, if you don't know what your options are, it's always great to seek that help and seek that advice, because you always want to try and find that positive resolution. And look, at the end of the day, sadly, if you can't, you can't. But that's why this is such a serious topic, and that's why we've been rather careful about some of the information that we've disclosed, because it's just unreal. The topic alone, landlocked, unreal.
That's a show.
My head's like this. I'm walking around with all this. I don't know what to do with all this info, but I got to do something with it. But I love it. Thank you so much, Mark.
It's interesting, and if this sort of stuff you may not have heard of, you may have a friend or family that could be going into that situation or have come out of that situation. It's great if we can help someone going into that situation with that information. So, mate, have a great Saturday, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for everyone that joined.
Good morning to Michelle. Thank you for Luke. Yeah, thank you everyone who joined in as well. Take care. Don't get landlocked.